All right, FBA labeling. Um, and I click it and it doesn't go. There we go. All right. All right. Well, first let's just talk a little bit about the general idea of why Amazon requires labels for their products. Um, the first thing is, in general, Amazon needs to be able to identify each individual product, and they can either do that using Amazon's labeled inventory, using their item numbers called FN SKUs is what they're called, or for some products you can actually do and use the manufacturer's barcode to be able to send an inventory. There are certainly pros and cons to both. I don't know if we necessarily want to go into that right now, but that's something that we certainly would want to decide when we want to add products into Amazon.
Well, Tim, why don't we talk about which version we recommend?
Sure. We recommend doing stickered inventory. And the biggest reason for that is that if you were to do stickerless inventory, as you see, it's called commingled. So that means that if you sell on a listing with several other sellers on there, the inventory can actually get commingled, which means that, let's say if one of the sellers decides to send in a product without any packaging. That's not allowed by Amazon, but let's say if one of your buyers buy a product from you, they might be sent one of your competitors' products because Amazon thinks that they're the same. By labeling your inventory with Amazon stickers, you actually will be able to make sure that when someone buys a product from you, they are actually getting a product that you had sent into Amazon.
I want to bring up an example of this, Tim. We talked about with one of our clients recently about why is this so very important, and you essentially explained it very, very succinctly, but I want to give an example to really show how this can be a problem. So here's a scenario. Let's say I buy a purse on Amazon. Maybe I'm buying that purse for my wife on Amazon, and I buy that purse and I get that purse in and I wrap it up and I give it to my wife, and she's like, I don't like this thing at all. This is not what I asked for. Return it. So I can choose to return it to Amazon, and they probably take it back, and maybe I'll pay a restocking fee. Maybe they'll just take it back for free, which they've been doing a lot of. Or what I could do is I could choose, as just a customer, to take that, put it back in the box, and list it as a brand new item against the same page that I bought it from, as a seller, as Paul DeWarian, the seller, on this listing that was created by whoever created the page before. And maybe between when she said I didn't like it and I said I don't want to return, I'm going to list it new, let's say there's a couple pieces missing from it because maybe it sat around on a table for a little while, it missed the return period, and it's kind of messed up, but or maybe there's some piece missing, but no one's going to know according to me, and that's what I think. I could package it back up, list it as new, and send it in, and one of your customers could get the bag that I sent in as new, and they might be upset and leave a negative review on that listing. And the reason is because if it was commingled inventory, all those bags coming in from anybody, Paul DeWarian sends this one in with the missing piece, you're the manufacturer, you send in a whole bunch of pieces that are perfect, but if you do commingle, they all go into the same bucket. And when Amazon gets an order, they take one out of the bucket, no matter who it came from, and they ship it out to that customer that ordered it. So by doing the stickered inventory, you protect yourself and your customers from getting a unit that is not somebody else's. It's yours. So the ones that you sticker and send in are going to be with confidence that your customers are going to get exactly those items. Tim, do you have any comments on that?
No, I think that's an excellent example that really helps illustrate why it's so important to do the stickered inventory.
So, Tim, I don't know if your next bulletin on here is whether or not you can have Amazon do it for you or if you do it yourself, but there we go. Go ahead and move right into it.
Yeah, so a lot of people think it's an absolute pain in the butt to take all their inventory, print out all these labels, which we're going to get more in depth into what's involved with printing the labels, and then putting them on, sending them out to Amazon, especially if you get everything case packed from the customer. or I'm sorry, from your supplier. But Amazon does allow you to basically use a labeling service called the FBA labeling service, where you can pay, I believe it's 20 cents per unit, and Amazon will apply the labels for you automatically while they're receiving the shipment at their fulfillment centers. So that's really a huge advantage.
That sounds awfully convenient, especially for somebody that doesn't want to take all their items out of the box or deal with that at their warehouse. If they just don't have the personnel or folks on staff to do that themselves, or they're sending in thousands of units, or they're even having their units sent to Amazon and they never touch them, that the Amazon labeling service certainly can be worth that 20 cents a piece. But going back to applying the labels yourself, I remember how we started, because I have a separate Amazon business, and when we started, we had the 30-up labels, the Avery 30-up labels, and we're
going to talk more about that, by the way.
Okay, so we're going to get into that
in detail. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But just to kind of go back to this, there is an unplanned service fee. So if you, let's say, send an inventory, forget to label it, and don't ask Amazon beforehand to label it, they're going to charge you to label all your products. Sometimes that's a higher fee than just the 20 cents per unit. And if you do that too often, it can actually restrict your ability to be able to use the FBA program, or even could possibly affect your seller account in general.
Okay. Yeah,
All right, so
that not only applies to labeling, but it's just if you send in the wrong number of units,
right.
or you send them to the wrong places, yeah, not only do you get some fees, but if you keep doing it and you really don't have tight quality control over what you're doing, Amazon can penalize your account to the point of shutting it down. Yeah, they didn't become the number one retailer on Amazon, or number one retailer, trusted retailer on the internet, by allowing people to really mess up things and not do a great job of being high quality customer service and performers in general in servicing customers and sending in inventory, etc.
Excellent. All right, well, if we don't have any questions, we can move on to the next part, which is how to actually print those labels.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, printing Amazon labels. The way that most sellers start out, which is a great way to start, is by using a laser printer. And I put a laser printer in here specifically because, and I'll again reiterate this at the end of this slide, you do not want to print labels using an inkjet printer. And the big reason is because, I'm sorry, we'll get into that in a second, but when you print labels onto a laser, or using a label printer, you use what are called 30-up labels, which is just using the standard Avery 5160 or 8160 labels, which are just 30 return address labels. You can find them anywhere. We usually recommend using the actual Avery brand because they tend to stick a lot better to the products than some of the private label branded ones, or unlabeled or unbranded versions. So it's important to get good labels. This way they stay on your products. Then what you do is you basically get a PDF of your labels generated by Amazon. And or so you can either get the labels while you're creating a shipment through the Amazon system, or what we usually recommend is that you actually print the item labels from your inventory screen, where you can actually print a full page of 30 labels at a time. The problem with printing labels this way is, let's say I'm only sending in 20 items, and I want to just print 20 labels. Well, it'll print up 20 labels onto a PDF, but we have 10 labels that we can't use anymore. So we might be able to flip it around and print 10 more on there, but it just becomes a major hassle to have to constantly go back and print partial pages, and it just really is quite an annoyance trying to print these things out, especially as you start doing volume and have several different SKUs that you're dealing with.
I want to comment on that, Tim, if I could. When you're printing from the Amazon interface and you say I have 10 of these or 20 of these, they don't give you the choice of which labels on the page you could do like you can in Microsoft Word. Correct. It's basically going to just lump them all to one side or at the top, and whatever is on the page is where it's going to end up. So that's why we recommend just do a full 30, even if you only need let's say 5 now, and you think your product might take off, and you only need 5 next week, print up the page of 30. What I used to do is put them in manila folders in a file cabinet, and I'd label it. This is the unit that these labels are for, and I'd have all those in my file cabinet. And when I was ready to send any other units in, I pull out the sheet of labels and I just peel off whatever I needed and put them on there. Tim, the other thing about the laser printer that I don't recall if you mentioned, but it also prevents the smearing of the ink on
Right.
there because it is adhering right onto the label, and it prevents that
Correct.
smearing. And why is
And
that important?
it's important because your labels have to be able to survive at least 24 months. And I think this is actually on the last slide as some information is your label on your product needs to be legible and readable by barcode scanners for 24 months after you send an inventory to them. And the problem with ink is it can smear, it gets damaged by being wet. It's just not going to be able to survive as long as it needs to. The laser is able to last quite a bit longer, but the best option is using a thermal laser printer, label printer. I don't know why I said laser, but it's a thermal label printer. There are many different types of label printers out there, and probably the biggest thing is, and I'm going to get to this in a second, the biggest thing is that you're able to basically print on demand. The way that you print out labels using a label printer is either you can use, a lot of companies now, they have software that can actually print out the labels for them, but Amazon does actually generate the labels for you in a label printer friendly format, and that's by going into the shipping queue and then selecting the option scan and label at the top. And as I said before, that provides you on-demand printing. So let's say we're sending in 5 products of SKU A, 10 of SKU B, and 7 of SKU C. I can actually just go in, print 5 of the first one, print 10 of the second one, print 7 of the third one, and I can just stick them right onto my packages right away. Don't have to worry about wasting any extra labels because of all that wasted space. Don't have to worry about filing anything so that I have to go back and find the rest of the 30 labels in the products or in the for the ones that you want to send in later. So it just becomes a lot more efficient process by doing the thermal laser printer option.
And speaking of that process, Tim, it also adds another level of being able to check, did I get everything for this particular case that I'm going to be sending into the warehouse, which is something you don't get with the first option. So you can have the labels, you can print out the labels in a way where the strip of labels is for 5 of these, 3 of these, 2 of those, 27 of these, etc. And all those particular products are going to go in one box to the warehouse in Phoenix. And let's say you do another strip of labels for the products that Amazon wants you to send over to Pennsylvania. So this allows you to be able to use those strips of labels as a check to make sure you got all the right things in the box as you're labeling them and putting them into the box, which is a great way to add some extra quality assurance to your Amazon shipping process. So Tim, let's go ahead, Tim.
I wanted to add a couple notes. The laser printer, something along the lines of what Tim had said about laser printing being almost unsmearable. We thought the same thing too for a long time. My brother and I also run a small Amazon account where we have a pro seller account, and we happened to buy a third-party toner cartridge for our laser printer and found out the quality was so low that these labels were actually smearing again with an actual laser printer, which was crazy to us.
Right.
And so encouraging people, similar to the Avery experience, to actually buy it's going to pay off in the long run to buy the actual quality product between labels and toner for your business. And second thing along that line is we are still, my brother and I, in the laser printer / 30 up labels phase, but we have realized lately that the thermal label printing system is the much more efficient and well-oiled machine way, and we will soon be transitioning into that, and we're excited about that.
Yeah, and
So,
just to kind of piggyback on your comment there, Blake, yeah, if you have a Brother laser printer, get Brother toners. If you print labels, make sure you use the Avery labels. That will help make sure that your labels are able to withstand the shipping process and will remain scannable for those 2 years that are required. But
Yeah,
if anything else, just make sure you do not use inkjet printers.
that's right. So no, wow, that's really big there, Tim.
Yeah.
And Tim, that's one of the things I just wrote down here. This is the Zebra printer, or it looks
Yes.
very similar to the one that we use. Do you have the model number that you can pull up?
Yeah. It's Z. Sorry. Give me a second. I
Go
had it
ahead.
up just a second ago. It's the Zebra 2844. They sometimes have other letters and stuff before or after it, just because of some of the attachments that they have, whether they're made to have like a cutoff thing. But if you just get a generic 2844 Zebra printer, which we've been able to find used ones on eBay for probably about $170, $180 that work beautifully. So
And one thing that we've done also is we have two. So if
yeah,
you think about it, you start ramping up volume in your business. We did 200,000 last year. We want to do more this year, and we're shipping out products almost on a daily basis out of our office and warehouse here. And if we have the laser printer go down or the Zebra printer go down, that's going to delay the amount of time it takes to get our product into the warehouse. And that's not acceptable to me, because if the inventory is sitting in our warehouse, it's not making us any money. It's not available for sale. So having extra of the equipment available to be able to just swap out at a moment's notice, extra toners, extra laser printers for we can. I wanted to bring that up too. We still use the laser printer for our UPS labels
hmm
and for anything that we do for the palletized shipping and things like that. That's critical to have those extra pieces of equipment. It doesn't cost a lot of extra money to have that safety net of being able to just swap out and use a different printer. So this way you can keep your process going without any sort of delay based on some sort of equipment failure. That being said, Tim, let's talk about what we use for these are labels for the Amazon products themselves, but since we are labeling them and we're shipping things in, we might as well bring up the idea of shipping things in through UPS. So if we're doing
right.
UPS shipping, there's different things that we can do to make that process more efficient, and that's where you could even use another Zebra printer, or you can do the 2-up labels per sheet on the laser printer. So can you get into some of that detail as well?
Sure, I don't really have anything in the presentation to kind of to walk through this, but in general, Amazon allows you to use their partnered shipping. What that means is instead of going directly to UPS to be able to ship products in, you'll actually use Amazon to ship via UPS to their fulfillment centers, and it's at a very steep discount. So that was something important that I wanted to make sure I kind of bring up before going into this a little bit more in depth. But that means that you get sometimes up to 60 to 70% off of retail prices of UPS shipments. Now, when you create the labels in Amazon, what it will do is it will generate the UPS shipping labels, and these are what need to be stuck on the outside of each box that needs to be shipped into Amazon. Each of these shipping labels actually has two labels on it. The label on the left will have the actual UPS label that UPS uses to track it and ship it to you or to the fulfillment center. And then the label on the right is the FBA label. The FBA label contains information for Amazon to be able to easily check in and process your shipment when it arrives at their fulfillment center. And it's extremely important that when you apply those to the box, that they do not cover any seams and they do not go over any edges. When you print these out, they come out on a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And when you print them out, you can just print them out on plain paper, but then you have to tape over it, to be able to make sure it doesn't get damaged in shipping or affected by any kind of rain or weather, anything like that. What we have found is that UPS actually provides what are called 2-up labels. So we talked about 30-up labels before, but UPS will provide you for free 2-up UPS labels that will fit these label sheets perfectly. All you have to do, load up your printer, print off the Amazon labels for the shipping, and peel them off, stick them right onto the boxes, drop it off at UPS. It is so efficient, it is so fast, and because it's printed out on the laser, again, using good toners and you're using the good quality UPS shipping labels, it survives the whole way through. We've never had an issue with them.
Yeah, that's a really neat pro tip. And all you need is your own UPS account. You can open that for free, and you're allowed to order a certain amount of material at no cost from UPS, and they'll just ship it to you. And they'll do the 2-up labels that go through the laser printer, and they even have rolls of labels that you can put in one of these Zebra printers as well.
Right. Those aren't compatible with Amazon's FBA shipping process, but if you process shipments outside of Amazon, fulfill orders yourself instead of using Amazon's fulfillment service, that's what we do for a few products that can't be shipped into FBA. That's a very valuable thing to have. So we actually do have 3 label printers. They're all the same, just 2 different size labels.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a look at the last slide here, Tim.
All right. And this is all about, the requirements for the barcode itself.
All right. So what do we need to know?
So the first thing is that you have to make sure that when you are putting the label onto the package, that you make sure you cover all existing barcodes. That includes the UPC code. That includes any other crazy UPC or barcodes that they may put on there. Some packages have multiple barcodes on them. You have to make sure that they are completely covered up, and the only scannable barcode that is on there is Amazon's FN SKU barcode.
So that's where sometimes if you have too many barcodes on there, instead of sticking a whole bunch of white labels all over the place to cover them up, it might make sense to use a poly bag that covers it up, or put it into a box and then label the box or something like that, depending on what's going to be the most efficient method.
And one thing that I know some manufacturers do is for product that is designated for Amazon, they actually have the Amazon barcode printed on the box as opposed to the actual UPC code, which if you have the ability to do that, that can cut down on your prep time quite a bit. And costs.
Absolutely. What's our next item, Tim?
So we kind of covered this before, minimum 24 months, so that means that when you create barcodes, they have to make sure to survive at least 24 months. Each SKU requires its own barcode. So what that means is just like how if you have a UPC for your different products, it's one UPC per variation of a product. When you create the listings in Amazon, it's going to create a unique FN SKU for each product that you sell. So it's extremely important to make sure that everything gets matched up correctly whenever you create these labels and stick them on the products.
So that means if that purse that I was talking about before, if there's a pink one, a blue one, a purple one, and some of them have 2 handles, some of them have 1 handle, every single variation, the purple one with the 1 handle needs its own FN SKU. The pink one with the 2 handles needs its own, et cetera, so forth. So you have to make sure that every variation has its own unique barcode. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes, that's correct. This is pretty self-explanatory, but you want to make sure you place it on the outside of all the prep material, all the packaging. So that means that if you have put your product into a poly bag, put that label onto the outside of the poly bag. If you put it inside of a brown box, make sure that that label is on the outside of the brown box. It needs to be something where Amazon is able to easily pick up the product from one of their shelves, scan it, and send it in right away. So basically ship it out right away. Also, you have to make sure that it's placed on a flat surface. Again, the same thing. Amazon needs to be able to scan it without any difficulty. And part of the same thing with that is that it needs to be at least a 1/4 inch between the edge of the label and the edge of the item. So it can't go over any edges. It can't go on any extremely rounded areas. I know that there's some packaging that is kind of rounded or spherical in nature. You really need to make sure that you put it onto a surface that's able to be easily found, A, and B, has to be able to be easily scanned. And lastly, kind of going back to making sure everything is labeled, it is extremely important that if you have a case-packed product and you are labeling the products yourself, you need to label each individual item that's inside of that case and make sure all of those barcodes that are existing on those products are covered as well.
So if any of this sounds daunting to you, that's where the labeling service can take care of a lot of these things for you. But you're paying that 20 cents a unit to do that.
Right.
Okay. So these are a lot of really specific items about labeling all of your items that are going to Amazon, and even the boxes that you're using to send them into Amazon through the FBA system. Another pro tip that I wanted to bring up is if you're using boxes that already have labels on them, so say you're just starting out, so we work with corporations that are huge, that are just buying boxes by the pallet load, and they're putting all their stuff in there, or maybe they're just doing palletized shipping and sending them in. But we also work with companies that have an invention, and they're just trying to start out, and they're using the materials that they have at hand. And sometimes if you had a box that came in from Amazon, something you ordered, you might want to use a heat gun to basically heat up the label just a little bit on something that maybe came in. You could just peel off that label very easily, and then you're able to slap your own label in it, or you can cover it up or whatever. But there's something that we've done when we first started was heating up the label and peeling them off. So I thought that was something that might be valuable.
Absolutely.
So I think the other thing that we could really get into at some point in time, and maybe our next webinar on Amazon could be about how to package things the right way, talk about the drop testing and some of those other things, which we can certainly link from this video as well when we get that onto our webpage and onto YouTube.